So guys, next up in this matchup series, what we're going to be having a look at is two players who both get it long and both get trapped on the downswing, but for completely different reasons. If this is a swing fault for you, this is something you definitely want to watch because there's some information in here that is guaranteed to help you improve your golf game. So looking at the next in the series of the matchups here, and we've got two players and they've got similar faults in terms of being trapped. Okay, one of them is the player gets a really, really long swing, and that's actually the swing fault. He said that he struggles with having that long swing, but we can see the effects of that in a minute when we go through it. And the other one is a player who struggles with blocks or overdraws, and in his own words said couldn't hit a fade to save his life. So we'll have a look at why that is and what we can have a look at to make the changes. So first one up here is Stephen. So having a look at Stephen in terms of setup position, a little bit too much knee flex here at the start. Very early on what we get is the club gets behind his hands here, meaning that the club head is going back too far in this direction here. We can then see goes really, really under, gets a right hand quite on top, arms then very, very deep on the body, and then he really extends the wrist a lot at the top, gets this lead wrist very cupped at the top of the back, so now it gets it incredibly long, doesn't have much hip rotation, then starting down from there, starts down, gets the club really, really steep on the way down, arms get trapped as he then has to back up with the head on the way down. So there's a few bits on the go there. So what we're going to do now is have a little look at this from the front view. When we see it from the front view, this should actually highlight a couple of the areas of where some of the faults and the long swings coming from. So setup looks great from the front here. Obviously from down the line we could see that the club got behind him early on. So we see quite a quick set of the club behind his body, and then what we see is that upper body starts to want to lean towards the target a little bit. So it starts to want to move a little bit in this direction here, following that curved arrow. So he's leaning over that front foot and snacking over that way. Then obviously we've got that left wrist really, really cupped, and what we'll see, right leg straightened up a bit. That's all because that weight's gone over that front foot. Head then really moves forwards here in transition, and then he has to stall out for those arms to catch back up with the body. So what does all of that actually mean? So what we're going to have a look at is, first bit, we see that the club really, really early on went behind his hands in here. Okay, so because it goes so far behind him, okay, what he then does is he stops turning his hip pelvis and then starts to lean towards the top, and that causes this left wrist to get really, really cupped, and then everything gets quite long. What he does as well is, as we get to about halfway back here, that upper body starts to lean a little bit towards the target, and we get this huge cupping. And what he does is, as he starts down, the head moves forwards again, which gets everything very steep, and he backs out to try and shallow that club. So really looking at that as in terms of what his movement pattern is doing, the big form or sort of fault of it all starts to go wrong really early on in that like takeaway. So once he gets the club back behind him at this point, everything is then trying to get the club up, and therefore he doesn't turn, lifts the arms up, and because the arms just go up, it's really hard to create the tension and the width he's going to need at the top. So that really creates a lot of problems for him. What we're going to always see is that when that club gets so long at the top and it's really cupped in that wrist, he then starts down and it gets really, really steep because his head goes so far forwards towards the target. So what we're looking at is there's 2 or 3 things he really, really needs to work at in order to get everything working to its optimum for his golf game. So the first thing we need to do is get that club staying more outside the hands here in this first move. So it will feel very much like that the toe of the club's working up in the air a lot more during this first move here, and a reference point that you want to have is at halfway back here, you want the butt of the club to point towards the ball. The feeling to get that reference point though will be that the butt of the club's pointing towards the toes. That's because obviously feel isn't real, and the golf club here goes very, very quickly inside, so this butt of the club's sort of pointing 20 feet outside the ball line. So what we want to do is get that up earlier, and then as you get it towards the top, really try and feel that the left wrist is flat. But to get it flat, you're going to feel like you are Dustin Johnson wrist at the top. I'm not advocating the fact that we want to have a bowed wrist here, but this is the fix for so it's the feel that we're looking at, okay? So at that top, you'll feel like it's a lot flatter, and you'll be able to then feel how the arms are a lot further away from the body. The big key then from that then will be that you'll be able to turn that right hip. This is going to be huge for your downswing to stop you getting it steep. So I can't emphasize this enough. You've got to get this pelvis loading backwards this way, so you're getting some weight moving into it, back that way, getting those wrists set, flatter left wrist at the top, and then from here, as you start down, make your transition, but really try and focus on making sure the head stays still. If that head goes forwards, that's what's going to get it steep. So a little recap there is going to be, get that club working up earlier in that first move, feel it flat at the top with the left wrist, which will feel bowed. You don't have to be flat, but you want to try and get it as flat as you can and get those hips turning. Once you've got those in place in the backswing, it should be quite easy to sort that downswing out by stopping that head from moving forward. They're going to be really key for you, Stephen, and something that I would really advocate that you make sure you do. So next we're having a look at is Matt. Now Matt's actually hitting driver in these videos. So he complains, obviously, he's the one who says that he hits draws all the time, okay, gets trapped, can't hit a fade to save his life, was his wording. Okay, so having a look at this now, what we're going to see, setup looks really good from down the line here. Starts that first move away, is really, really good. Fantastic takeaway. Then the club starts to set up nicely straight through the middle of the forearm. And then at this point here is where I'd like to see the backswing stop. So this would like be a 3/4 type feel. What we see is that the backswing continues to go. So the club gets long, and at the same time those arms continue moving. Okay, so what's happening at that point then is that that right elbow gets behind. So now as that body starts down, we can see that this elbow is really trapped behind the body. So once that elbow is really trapped behind the body, what we'll then see, head backs out underneath it to try and shallow out all of the movement. Okay, so what we've got is we've got arms running on too far there, lower body starting down early, which is a key for speed, but it's not necessarily going to give you consistency because you're always going to be trapped, which is why we see a lot of those draw paths because the club's coming too far on the inside. Have a quick look from the front view right here. What we'll see from here is a little bit of movement off the ball with the head in the backswing. It's not horrendous, but it's a little bit of movement off right here. Just drawing this arrow up through the head there. We see it moves off. A little bit of loss of height, which isn't a problem. But now what we see is the knee goes out, which is a really good, strong transition move, but those arms continue to drop back behind the body. Head recenters itself, and then it really has to back out. We see how it's moving away from that arrow on the way down in order to shallow everything out. Now, this is actually a really easy fix, okay? It's going to be difficult to work it in long term, but we'll have a look at why this is going to be the case. So what we'll see is, first part of this golf swing here, takeaway was absolutely brilliant, club set up brilliant, hips have turned, but what we're seeing is at the top here, where this is where I want the swing to stop. So to stop it here will feel like it's stopping there. Okay, because it's going to be the feel and reel. We'll go through this in just a moment, but what we see is this then carries on. So the arms carry on, the elbow then goes, and then the hips rotate. So now the elbow is trapped behind the body, and although we're going to have great separation and we can create a lot of power, the path's always only going to be from the inside. It's going to be hard to square that face up unless you stall and throw the arms, and at times probably even hit the odd toe ball in terms of, because the arms are going to be trapped behind the body unless you stall out. We see that there's a little bit too much movement off the ball with the head in the backswing than what we want to see. Obviously you recenter that on the way down, but you then have to back out, which this back out going this way with the head on the way down, it allows you to extend those arms outwards to reach the ball. So a couple of little things on the go there, but so much good stuff in that golf swing. I mean, like loads of great stuff, and the speed looks phenomenal. It looks like I'm going to hit the ball a long way. So what we want to see is to make the changes for this golf swing. I want you to really feel like the club only gets to sort of halfway back, left arm parallel to the floor. I heard Matt Wallace saying this the other week on Sky, and he was saying that the big difference to his game this year has been that he's shortened up his backswing, which has given him more consistency. And in order to shorten up his backswing, what it felt like he was doing was swinging it to here. This is the position he got it in, because he said he knows that his arms travel up to the top. So if he tried to stop it short at 3/4, his arms still always travel on. So that would be the same feeling for you. What we need to do in this instance is, in order to make that swing shorter, you have to feel it dramatically shorter. So what the analogy I would say to you is, to get this swing sort of 3 or 4, 5, 6 frames shorter, it's only going to be a couple of inches, it's going to have to feel about 3 feet, okay? Because feel isn't real, it's going to be a massive swing change. So it's going to be here, feeling there, instead of up here. Obviously this is then getting that length. What I then want you to try and do is at that top of the backswing, similar sort of movement still in your pelvis, but I want you to load that right heel down a little bit more and feel like you're pushing down through it. Okay, what this will do is, this will help you get a more sort of transition where everything's going to be sequenced together better, which is going to give you more space, as opposed to when you don't load the heel and it goes, it's starting to get everything trapped. Whereas if we load the heel, then there's all this room right in here for the arms to come, and then everything can start to come through together. So for you, it's just going to be load that pelvis more going back and get that swing shorter, and you should be absolutely flying at that point, because everything else looks really, really good. Your lower body starts down nicely, so that is really, really good. Guys, I hope you've really enjoyed this sort of analysis of the two players. If you'd like to get involved in this, have a look at the top part of the screen up here. That is where you're going to be able to find all of the instructions. Please send your videos in. There's people who've sent videos in so far. Don't worry, we are going to get to it. I've not missed you out. Can only do 2 at a time, but we're going to get through to everyone, okay? So please send your videos in if you'd like to get involved in this matchup series. I think if we can really help everyone's game, it's going to be giving back to you guys who watch the channel and help you improve your game. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Thanks a lot for watching, and talk with you again very soon.